guys, and welcome to the latest edition of Train with Honour TV. And today's guest is a very experienced S&C coach across the board. But not only is he a coach, he's an educator and someone very well thought of within the industry. So I'm delighted to welcome Mr. Sam Portland to the show. Sam, welcome. How are you?
Hey, good. Thank you for having me on. Doing well. Like I said, successful morning coaching, and then now obviously doing all the admin side for the rest of the afternoon.
Good old coach's day. Good old coach's day, right? It's got to be done. It's got to be done. Great start to the week. So for the listeners that are coming across you for the first time, just want to give them a brief introduction to who you are, how you got into strength and conditioning.
Yeah, so essentially, we'll do the Cliff Notes version. Wanted to be a professional rugby player. Was getting looked at by clubs a little bit later on when I was about 19. Broke my leg, and then that started everything. Had to drop out of university, re-establish everything I wanted to do, and then actually was going to go back in and study physio or sports therapy, but then I found out you could actually become a strength and conditioning coach, which is what I really wanted to do. And then fast forward through university, I went to Brunel, and at that time, in that layoff period, I actually qualified as a personal trainer. So I started coaching. I'd been a rugby coach, and it was periodically from the age of about 12. I just loved coaching, and then started coaching S&C. That my first client was actually my mum, and I was haggling friends to let me train them. And then when I was at university, there was at Brunel, there's lots of good athletes, so I was just like begging them. I was like, let me coach you, I'll do it for free, just trying to get some experience. And then when I graduated Brunel in 2012, an internship came up with which was London Wasps then, and small world. The guy that was employing at the time had actually connected a very well thought of strength and conditioning coach in America to someone in the UK who lived 20 minutes from my house, which lo and behold was the son of the owner of Wasps, whose son was going into the program which I was applying to be the intern S&C coach for.
Not bad.
So yeah, exactly. And the guy, I'm sure you'd be familiar with rugby strength coach Kierwell and Fat was the guy that employed me, and James the Thinker Smith was the guy that I was observing.
Wow.
And that was my first experience of an internship, and he was literally just up the road from my house. I went and watched him every day for 2 weeks, and he actually gave me my first strength and conditioning reference. So I had a reference from James Smith, which was, I didn't realize the weight of it until I realized who he was. And I was sat down having a conversation with him whilst he was writing his applied sprint training manual and going through all the research and stuff like that. So it was unbelievable. And so then I was at Wasps. 18 months later, I ended up getting fast tracked up to the first team. I was doing GPS, like the junior role, ended up running the rehab program there. Then I resigned in October 2015, purely because of my professional differences of what I believe standard performance should be, aka I was treated like shit. And there was, there's something that we'll be talking about at a later date. There was an influential incident where my name got written out of a report which changed something in rugby union, which was really interesting, but that's for another time. Right. And so then I took some time off. I lost someone very close to me that Christmas, and it reevaluated a lot of things that I wanted to do in my life. Ended up going to Ealing Trailfinders for 2 years, signed a 2-year extension. 6 months into that extension, I got released, and then I was pushed into my own, really drive on to my own work. But like I said, I'd been working for myself since I was at university. So the whole time, even when I was at Wasps, I was coaching and programming for World Player of the Year at the time on £18,000 a year, and I had 3 jobs. So that's the way it is. And so now, I work for myself under Sportland, and I've been working with the last couple of years Alex Gray, who was at the Atlanta Falcons in the NFL. I did both of his off seasons. Like this year was a lot longer because of COVID. And I've got a guy at the moment, Toby Letterman, who is at TCU, who's a big college university, NCAA conference, first conference one. And what am I doing? Mentoring, got a mentorship program, loads of coach education, did a 500 coach seminar run last summer.
500, blimey. Is this all on your own as well, or have you got a team with you?
So I have one guy that works with me. His name's Mark Stevenson. He heads up my academy. So we've got an academy which caters from like 9 years old up to about 16 to 18, that sort of age bracket. And he runs that and he helps deliver that. And then everything else I do on my own. Yeah, I sort of really push it. So
pretty full on journey, going from uni straight into, a huge club like Wasps. It's something, a lot. It's something. I've spoken to a couple of guests previously about the transition from, university to getting your internship with a professional club. How would you describe that in terms of the benefits, and is it something that you think benefited you working with elite athletes straight away, or do you think it would have been more suited to sort of work grassroots and then upwards?
Well, I think this is where my journey is quite different. Because when I was 12 or 13, I volunteered and did 6 weeks rugby coaching at a Wasps community program. And then and even in those years, I was in a household where my mum at the time was a childminder. So I was around young kids and I was always coaching in that form. Yeah. So by the time I actually got to coach at Wasps,
you'd had a background already.
Thousands of hours. And I kid you not, I remember I was begging my friends, let me coach you. I'll coach you for free. Let's go to the park and we'll just train. And I was and it didn't matter because I had a goal of being, I wanted to be one of the best coaches in the country and wanted to coach England, and not really realizing that actually when you become the head S&C of England, you do fuck all coaching, excuse my language.
And that's a scary thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So I was kind of, and I was PTing door to door. I trained, 50, 60-year-old women and those, all of coaching those types of people made everything else so much easier. Because I'm going to say 60% of all professional team sports players are pretty physically competent in what they can do. So a lot of the time it's just program delivery.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't actually teach. You barely do a lot of teaching.
Yeah.
And I think a big problem that we've got with the industry is that and what I've found with the crossover from university to applied coaching is that applied is actually understanding how to teach and impart knowledge. Because the problem is when you get to university, and I've done a master's as well, I'm sure you'll be aware of this the same. You don't actually get taught anything. You just get told what to learn.
Yeah, you don't learn. Obviously, you don't learn until you get on the job. And it's with team sports, it's never a one size fits all thing, No. And this is one of the, we briefly spoke off air about it. And this is something that the technical coaches don't particularly understand. And, when you're there as an S&C coach, you're ultimately there to do fitness. But for the listeners that are listening, you can go and everyone thinks it's great to work at a football academy or a rugby academy or work with Team GB in any capacity. And, as we've both seen in through our own experiences, it's not all about you are the S&C coach for London Irish or Tigers or Man United or whoever. You're ultimately an assistant coach because first and foremost, if you're going to work within rugby, the lads are getting, if it's elite level, obviously, the lads are there to get paid to get a result on the Saturday or the Sunday. Yeah. and if they can get fitter, brilliant. So what's your sort of experiences, Sam, with working within that area in terms of the relationships you've got with the first team coaches, in more specifically in rugby?
Yeah, so it is quite an interesting one. It's a really difficult, you find yourself, and I mean, I'm lucky. Like we just talked about how I actually resigned from my last post after a week because it was a car crash, and I saw, I've had enough experience to see the writing on the wall, and say, no, this is not for me. But 5 years ago, I would have stuck it out. Yeah. And the problem is, and I would have hated myself for it because we've all been there.
100%, mate, 100%.
You're wearing a badge that you think matters, and nothing else matters, and it's really sad. And so you find yourself having to kind of, essentially you have to spoon feed things because we're stuck in this monkey see, monkey do culture. It's like, until you break the boundary and break the cycle of, because people, when the pressure's on, they will coach how they've been coached. They would, and also when they get to a higher level, it's not about actually imparting knowledge and giving someone the tools to go and create and explore and make opportunity on the field. It's actually more about organizing them to deliver a tactical system that should break down an opponent. We play a certain way here. We do this here. Whereas if you think about it, in certain positions, they're always kind of like there used to be, we'll bring in a Kiwi fly half because he'll be able to unlock defenses. And it's like, well, because the Kiwi fly half, quote unquote, he's actually not just because he's a Kiwi fly half, he's explored the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas, from the early young ages of coaching kids this technical way, it's do this, do this, do this. Yeah. Not let me teach you X, Y, Z, and then you go and slot it in. And so from that cycle, we have to break that cycle, because what they'll do is they'll associate the type of fitness and conditioning that they did when they played, and they'll just resort to that because that's what they know, because it's the fear of the unknown, and which is sad and scary, where as an S&C coach you're then put in a position where you've got to become an educator. And then you're banging your head against, and it's a perfect storm. Like, put this, you're banging your head against a brick wall about someone who isn't open-minded enough to learn, or you think they're open enough to learn, but as soon as they lose or a result doesn't go away, pressure comes on, they'll revert to type because they have to protect and save their jobs. Exactly. So and then you end up trying to fight a fire and have a fight with yourself. And then this is where the ego of the S&C coach comes into play, where it's like, well, why doesn't he trust me? Why isn't he listening to me? Why won't he just do what I tell him to do? Because A, they don't understand, B, they don't care, and C, they're gonna do it their way anyway.
Yeah. So
it's that.
And you bang on there. And that sort of comes into the no like trust situation, doesn't it? What is the specific reason? And you're right in terms of the educational side of it, because as we keep alluding to, athletes go to a club, amateur, professional, whatever, to play that sport, and they don't want to do the other bits. However, when it comes to them being injured, that's when we matter, because it's my hamstring's gone, or my shoulder's dislocated. Oh, who do I go to? Go to technical coach. No, doesn't know. Go see Sam, go see Chris. And then it's like, oh, you want to listen to me now? And it's a case of, why are you coming to me now and not later on? But again, I suppose this sort of goes to, how you build relationships with your players, and ultimately, you are, whether you're the technical coach, the S&C coach, the physio, you're responsible, really, aren't you, for the perceptions that you're having, because you're the new guy if you're the new kid on the block, so to speak, then you've got to make sure that people know who you are, what you're doing, what your capabilities are, and more importantly, how they can use, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, how they can use and exploit your services when they've got you. And that's where, in effect, when it comes to, I mean, I've done it in the past, I'm sure you have as well. When you've got an elite player that's working with you, the first thing you're going to do, video testimonial, or you have, I work with Frank Sinclair, former Chelsea player. On a one on, and we used to be head coach, assistant coach in the session. So he'd lead some, I'd lead some, and all I don't know Frank massively well, but I knew him well enough to turn around and say, right, well, he's seen me do coaching for a long period of time. Frank, can you do me a testimonial? Yeah, there you go. Lo and behold, because of his status and who he is, people think, oh well, if he knows this person, he must be good. And like you said earlier on, you've got the badge on your chest. If they work for Wasps, if they work for England, they must be brilliant. But in reality, until you do your due diligence and you do your research about them and you get to know that person, that's when you identify whether they're going to be a benefit for you or whether they've just winged their way to the top because of something that we all cling on to, the network of people we have, which of course, if you know the right people, you're going to progress into the right places.
And also, saying yes. Yes men go a long way. And it's kind of, you always see, like I've seen it recently in rugby, like people's circumstances are very different. I've been able to, walk away from a position and stuff like that because I've had a business alongside of everything. Whereas some people don't, they have to sit in positions that they don't want to be and then hope and bide their time. And you always see it when the head coach goes and the assistant coach steps up, who is actually, and then they're just, doing it in the Premiership Rugby this year with Wasps, where Lee Blackett's he's now taken over. They were 10th. They're now in the Premiership final in 2 weeks' time. They were 10th, looking at relegation, and now they're in the final in 2 weeks' time and playing out of their skin. And Lee joined the year that I resigned in that year, and he's a phenomenal coach, but trapped. But in that time, what you see as well is that person within that environment has become such a heavy influence, and the players love him and respect him, and he's worked with them. He's like a real coach's coach. And I've seen that first, and I can't speak highly enough of him. But now he's actually been put in charge, and all the actual work and relationships that he's built is bringing the best out of these players. And it's fantastic to see. And that's what I think the most important thing is, like if you're to put on a postage card about what coaching is, and you look at the most successful coaches, they're all teachers. They've all been teachers, or they know how to teach. And the problem that we find with regards to physical preparation and in that context of actually teaching people stuff is that we're still stuck at GCSEs as an industry. Where you've got master's level technical coaches that can actually teach and impart nuance, where we're still arguing over Broncos and yo-yos and Olympic lifts. And where, have you seen the film Field of Dreams?
I've not seen it. I've heard a lot about it, but I've not seen it.
With Kevin Costner. So basically it's about a baseball team that builds this field. But anyway, there's a scene in it where the guy can't step over the line of the edge of the baseball field or he'll disappear because he's a ghost, right?
Okay.
And I have this funny parody in my head where this is like 90% of strength and conditioning coaches, if they step foot out of the gym, they will disappear because it's their comfort zone. And it's where like you do your master's lecture and on speed, and it's 1 hour on applied movement. And because fundamentally there you're being taught by or being told what to learn by people that can't coach, and who are highly academic. And whilst there needs to be a really good place for it, if you look at the practical applications of any research paper, it's about 4 lines, and also within that, it's like, well, this is fucking useless anyway, because it means nothing to me. How are you going to tell me that, I had a 120 kilo back row guy. I've got a private speed group that I work with now, running over 9.2 meters per second inside 40 meters. How are you going to tell me that squatting is going to benefit that? How are you going to all these sorts of correlation causation relationships? Because it doesn't. And that's kind of where the industry needs to go, is kind of, when I talk to my guys, coaches and mentors, like, we need to find out where we're actually entering the conversation of the athlete's career, looking at where they're ready to develop, looking at where they're ready to push, and like what you find, basically, and I've gone off on a tangent here, but essentially what you do is you find the easiest thing that you can do, which costs the least to the system, which you can do the most of, and you kick the fucking living daylights out of it until it stops working.
Yeah, this is exactly it. And it all boils down to the tried and tested methods, and also, and what have you got in your arsenal as well, isn't it? Because, like we talked about, the most basic bits of equipment is what works. Speed. You don't need speed gates. Just get 2 cones, what is it, a stopwatch, job done. Yeah, okay, it's going to be maybe a second out, worst case scenario, but 6 weeks time, you monitor it. Have they hit it? Yeah. Have they not? If they haven't, then what training have they done before? What training have they done? But it's interesting. And obviously, talk about the back squat and it not really working in terms of speed development, because that's one of the things that, in the fitness industry, people seem to think that by doing heavy lifting does increase your speed, but I suppose it's a case of how you use it, isn't it? Really, whether you do heavy lifts or whether you put a little bit of explosion in there. But again, there's no set once. It's like with athletes, there's no one size fits all. You could hear someone like Vern Gambetta say one thing, and then we try their method, and it doesn't work for that athlete. But then you try with somebody else, and it does. And I suppose it depends on. And this is where
Vern Gambetta arguing with everyone again.
Yeah, mate, that's it. And it is, and this is another danger that a lot of people have got, especially as coaches, is we find certain coaches, we idolize them. And I don't want to use the word waste, but we spend so much time buying into their methods. Yet the moment that they say something that we don't agree with, then that sort of puts that element of self-doubt into your head as to, if they've triggered this reaction now, what else is it? And again, this depends on how good the coach is. Are you a coach that just says, right, Brendan Chaplin's giving you all these exercises, you've got to do it. Vern Gambetta's done all these exercises, I'm going to copy and paste it and deliver it. Or are you someone that tries it, looks at what works, what doesn't work, and then you highlight, so to speak, what it does work, and then you take it into the next session, you shove off the rest of it.
But it's all a guessing game. It's all a testing ground, and it is, like you said, it's about, keep what works, remove what doesn't, like test, retest all the time. It's like with certain techniques, certain cues, and bits and pieces, and I always, when I deliver the workshops, I've got this slide, and it's like concepts, methods, concepts, principles are the things that you need to, in that order, and then meet reality and see what fits.
Keyword.
Because like for instance, today I had a session with my lineman Toby, who's at TCU. It was wet, it was raining, we had to change the session. We had to create resistance in different ways. We were outside. So how did I then navigate the training environment to get the result that we wanted? Change the session 8 times, and there's nothing wrong with that because we still came away with the end product. And that's where I said to you before about some of the manuals for a coach. We don't have, and this is the reason why you shouldn't be married to any method, is because you need to have a strategy. You need to have a sequence of events which you need to see happen and take place for things to change. It's like pulling and pushing levers all the time, like navigating someone down a path, because if that lever turns, then we know that they go that way.
Yeah.
And then that gives us these options. But if you don't have a path, so like I've put together all these, like what have we done now? We've done speed, change of direction, and plyometric coaching progressions from 0 to advance, and we outline and progress everything in those, because how do you know where you're going to if you can't regress back, or if you haven't got a structure? So that's kind of how we outline and remove things and that's how we do it with the academy. And it's funny, we use the same system in the academy relatively to the same system with some of the pro guys I work with, because it's, like you say, it's all about where do we enter the conversation, and 9 times out of 10 that conversation starts at skill rather than physical ability. So it's like I can have a 10-year-old and an international athlete both starting on frontside wall holds for speed, because that's what they're both ready for at the same time. Yes, the international athlete's going to progress a lot quicker, and so he should. But however, the 10-year-old on his journey, it still needs to do that. And then, like you say, with every injury, you have to start again. With every change in the body, you have to start again. When peak height velocity occurs, we know that we're getting limb length change. So we're getting more tension on moment arms, more tendon tensile force going on.
Yeah.
So then we start the system again. So if they grow a centimeter, then they start again. They grow 2 centimeters, start again, because we have to re-educate the body. And if we can do that there's that balance between when technique breakdown, is it a skill or a capacity issue?
Yeah,
exactly. We're constantly testing that.
It's that biological age as well, isn't it? It's the biological age and this is why you've got some 16-year-olds will go and play, they're playing League One and then they're in the Premier League 2 years later, because they've matured a lot more physically. And it's scary. So tell us a bit more about your academy then, Sam, because obviously we've delved quite deep into your work, your sort of post-uni into your rugby work. So tell us a bit more about your educational side and how it came about and sort of what you're looking to get out of it, really.
So I mean the academy, and which was really interesting how that started, because we're always trying to think about how we can influence the athletes coming through. And I'm in a position now, this is where the two intersect, where actually my education stuff helps from the top. So you're influencing and trying to help coaches navigate more strategic ways of coaching. So that's coming down, and we're implementing the education and the type of training that the coaches are hopefully, and they meet in the middle. So if we get guys that come through that are good quality athletes, and the coaches that I work with end up having them, then you've got the perfect harmony of accelerated progression. But the academy started, which was I was playing for a semi-professional rugby club. They were paying me and to do the S&C. And at the time I was writing a lot of the stuff for Wasps. And I said, look, you can't pay me enough. So why don't you let me start an academy out of the club, and then I can make some more money and I can bring in someone to help me, and we can start influencing the club that way. So we can start creating a feeder into the first team at this club. And that was like 6 years ago now, 5 years ago. And we're up to 60, 70 kids at the moment, and doing, really, really well there. And we're trying to sort of keep building that and of sound principles and rationale. And, we had a kid win British schools 400-meter hurdles in trainers, and he had never done it before.
Wow.
Because we teach them the fundamentals and the principles. They jump, they sprint, they throw, we've got this a sound system in place where, which comes into the education side of things, where I started, like I told you last year, I did a big seminar run, and when I got let go from Ealing, I sat and licked my wounds for a little while, re-strategized, but everything happens for a reason. So that was in the October. In the January, I picked up Alex Gray and became the first coach to coach someone who's an active NFL player in the UK. And then we took him through, and then that was March. And then I did my first speed seminar. I had 85 people turn up to it. Yeah. And then from that point of view, I was like, oh, I'm onto something. And I've got, stuff that I can teach people, because, I'm over 10 years of coaching at the elite level. And so fast forward, I was actually in Manchester, did Manchester, did Birmingham twice, did London, Belfast. Where else did I go? Oh, it escapes me now, but anyway.
Not many places you can't remember.
And I ended up consulting with Burnley Football Club for 2 days that year, and with the first team up there. And then when lockdown came in, and before I'd do, like, people would email me and like, I want to learn about this. I was like, right, okay, so we'll do a consultation. We'll do a Skype consultation. And I was getting more and more of them coming through, where it just didn't make sense. And someone would ask me about this, and then someone asked me about that and this. And I was like, do you know what? With all the stuff that I've done and know, and the work that I've done with all these individuals, if one person's asking it, another person asking it, exactly. It's going to be questions that people want to know the answers for. And so I started a mentorship program where I take coaches through 12 weeks. It's a mixture of applied strength and conditioning and personal development. I'm a big advocate on personal development and mental health and well-being. I said earlier, there was something that happened in my life that drastically changed my life, and from then I had a counselling therapist, which I still see now, who's kind of, I always joke about, it's like I pay someone to help me understand my own thoughts and help me. It's like a notebook at the other side of the screen, and it's really good, and like a mirror. So I'm very well versed in all those sorts of things. And these coaches come in, and the big thing is, like, how can you expect to optimize other people in your life if you've not optimized yourself, if you've not taken a true introspective version? So we go through a process of sort of disarming previous beliefs. We set out career development plans. We set up education development plans, and they have 12 lectures once a week, and then a weekly phone call, a group phone call, where we end up discussing and talking about things. And some of it's tough, like it's very exposing for the lads. But what's really interesting is that they get what I found is that they want to learn all the S&C stuff, but they actually want to do more of the personal development stuff. Yeah. More. They're like, I asked them, I was like, what lecture do you want next week? They're like, can we have another PDP one? I was like, no, because you need to learn about this. You've only got 8 weeks left. And like, no, we want to do this stuff. And so it was really good, because what I like it that it's done is, I mean, it's funny, we got a lad that's at we spoke about Ryan, who was on it, a lad he's at Sheffield Wednesday, and another guy, Aaron, who's at Hull, and their teams ended up playing against each other. So they ended up meeting and hanging out with each other and discussing. And so you create this whole environment where I end up just becoming a mediator and put these guys on ice and put them in the hot seat. And what does that mean? Why do you do that? What does that mean to you? Start looking at habits, you start looking at all sorts of things, and they just, it's become something that's really powerful, and it's probably like one of my most proudest coaching achievements. And I know that if we can continue to do it, that's why I say it's the intersecting value. If I can help coaches not only learn how to better themselves, because with coaches with better boundaries and better personal lives are going to coach more effectively, worry less about it, coach carefree,
Yeah, exactly.
And then the athletes are going to end up better in the process of it all. Yeah. So it's been, because, you know, I've had to navigate my career and change in a few different ways, which everyone does. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that you're not going to coach on the front line every day for 10 to 20 years and expect to have a healthy personal life.
Oh, exactly. That's the most important thing, isn't it? It is that balance, like you rightly said. That sounds pretty awesome. That does sound pretty awesome, you know.
Thanks.
You know, and the fact that, you know, and like you say, again, the word networking keeps popping up, doesn't it? The word networking, another one in there, again, accountability. That's sort of indirectly brought up, like accountability and vulnerability.
Yeah.
And obviously, the more open you are, you're going to feel, don't get us wrong, you're going to feel like shit for probably about the first 3-4 minutes. But when you come off that call or you come away from it, you think, you know, bloody hell, what's just come over? Because you feel like shit, but you go away, you think about it, and you're actually motivated and pumped afterwards because you think, well, it's not because I'm not good at it. It's because I actually care about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I've been given that nice kick up the bum, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I can now go away and do it, because there's a lot of coaches that don't have a mentor. And I've always said that the best coaches have coaches.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good thing.
And that's what I use with my, as I say, that's why I have the therapist. I say, she's my coach.
Yeah. And mental health is just absolutely, you know, it's something, you know, everyone's got to have some form of mental health coach, whether that's your brother, your sister, your mum, your nana, somebody that you can, you know, your best mates, just someone, or even if you go on LinkedIn and you can see that they do a live feed at 7:00 on a Thursday night, go and see it, watch it, because if you can send a question and say, right, well, this is my problem, they're going to come on and they're going to speak about it. And if they don't speak about it on the night, they're going to then use that question as content creation in a couple of months' time, a couple of weeks' time. But
I'll tell you an interesting story. So I'll tell you an interesting story about that sort of stuff. It's where one of the guys, and it's interesting where you create this, and this is where I talk about being carefree, is that you have to detach yourself from the process. And when we talk about flow state, that's when you stop analyzing and start creating. And that's a global context which stems from Buddhism, and where you essentially, what you're trying to achieve is this state of presence and just being present and still. And when you say someone, I've had it on my own Instagram or like anywhere where someone actually sent me a message about, I do these things called Fuck It Fridays, where I talk very openly and honestly about my personal experiences and share my learnings of the week and stuff like that. And it's been going nearly a year now. And I had a message off the back of it, and the guy messaged me. He's an ex-player of mine. He messaged me and he said, reading what you said, I finally realized, you know, I'm not performing as well as I should because of X, Y, Z. I said, that's awesome to hear. And he just said, I didn't even know you would reply, but in replying, me sending that message, I already feel better. That's and cool. It's kind of, it's quite an interesting lesson and learning from about, because I talk about journaling. I actually did it on my Instagram. So I talk about journaling and verbalizing and giving life to all these sorts of things. And that goes from just your own personal experiences, wins and losses, but then also your misunderstanding or your understanding of a construct of coaching, such as speed or gym or whatever. If it's stuck in your head, it's not going to do anything.
People buy people, don't they? People buy people. People want to know people that are relatable to them, and you do right, and it's the best way. So for who wouldn't want to reach out and find out a little bit more, you know, we've covered quite a lot today, to be fair, from, you know, and it's been great, and I really appreciate you coming on. And, you know, I'm sure we could probably speak about the academy for longer. We could talk about different philosophies for you know, and take it onto a 3-4 hour podcast. But for the guys that maybe want to find out a little bit more about your academy and about your work and how you can help them, where can they go? Where can they find you?
So the best place to find me would be at coach_Sportland on Instagram. My email is sam@coachsportland.co.uk. And what I'll do is I will send you a couple of links. I'll send you a link to the my website and my mentorship waiting list or registration list. And for anyone that just wants to reach out, like I said, this was a sporadic conversation that occurred over LinkedIn, and I'm more than happy to come back on and talk more, because I just really love having these conversations with guys like yourself. So thanks very much for having me on.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on. It's been fantastic. So so we'll stick the links in below, guys. So make sure you do get in touch with Sam, and don't be afraid to ask any questions, because if you don't ask a question, you're never gonna progress. So Sam, I'll let you get back to your day. Thanks very much for coming on, and I look forward to catching up soon, pal. Have a great one.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much. Cheers.